the starting lineup of your favorite show. At producer, 5'11" from Blanchester, the Cow Killer, Casey McCollister. And comic engineer, standing at 4'8", the pride of the West Side, Elliot Rearing. And your host, weighing 150 pounds, soaking wet, from Hamilton, Ohio, Ace Fowler.
Well, yo, yo, yo! You are watching Off the Bench as we come live from Chatterbox Studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ohio, every day from 10 to 12.
P.
How's it going, guys? Obviously, my name wasn't in the intro, but it wasn't very long ago that I was furloughed from this show. I was kicked off, sent to AAA, whatever you want to say, but I was kicked off the show. I'll be filling in for the next 2 weeks as Trace, Elliot, and the crew go on the road towards spring training. And even if they would have invited me, I wouldn't want to go. Who would want to go to, a game every day? Who'd want to go to see the two best teams in the NBA play each other? Who'd want to go to a NASCAR event and a hockey match over and watch the Colorado Avalanche? Who would want to spend a week in Arizona? Who would want to go to Vegas for a couple of days? That doesn't sound like fun at all. I'd rather stay here in Southwest Ohio. But I don't have to host this show. At least that's not what I'm telling myself. I kind of have to host this show. I get to host the show. We've got Casey and Lindsay in the room. We will have Austin Elmore in the second hour. We'll have a trip, hear an update from the road in the second hour. See, this show has had a bunch of hosts in its short run, and it's also been a bunch of different things. But one thing that I don't think this show has ever quite gotten right, at least in my approximation, is the monologue. Now, how do I set the tone for this show, not just for this week, not for this show, but for the entirety in which I host, which is the next 2 weeks? I don't know. But here's how I'm going to try and do it. So most of the talking heads in sports media talked about this last week. We talked about it here on Chatterbox Sports, and that is the NFLPA player survey. It was the second ever player survey. Obviously, the Bengals did poorly on kind of the auxiliary things. They ended up middling the pack, but stuff like cafeteria, stuff like how they treat the families of the players, they got a straight up F. Didn't do well at all. That's not the point I'm going to bring up today. I'm not going to talk about how teams perform, anything like that. What I am going to tear apart, and it's kind of an age-old thing in sports media, and that's going to tear apart another commentator that talked about this. It's someone that people like to beat up on, and I have a lot of respect for this guy. I think he's maybe the best to do it in the country, maybe in the world when it comes to talking sports, and that's Colin Cowherd. I know you guys all have some take that you strongly disagree with Colin. I know you rip apart. I know Trace always likes to bring up how Colin 15 years ago said that Greg Oden will be a much better player than Kevin Durant. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Wasn't even close. But I would say this. You guys try to talk for 3 hours a day about sports and see how many takes you hit on and how many you miss on. It wasn't so much what he had to say directly about the player survey. It's about something that bugs me most in the world. Casey, play this clip.
But I saw this yesterday. NFL player 1,700 voted on teams. Survey of working conditions. And it is pretty embarrassing that the Commanders are dead last, and they have the worst NFL owner, in my opinion, ever in Dan Snyder. And one spot above them is the Kansas City Chiefs. That's kind of embarrassing. And the report card, the treatment of families, D+, the food, C-, nutritionist, F for the Chiefs, locker room, F, training staff, F, ownership, F-, team travel, D, head coach, A+. So they like Andy Reid. So Clark Hunt, and they are putting, I think, $800 million into the stadium and facilities. He pays his people. His head coach, highest paid coach in the league. His quarterback, highest paid quarterback in the league. His defensive coordinator, Chris Jones, probably will be the highest paid defensive lineman soon. His defensive coordinator, top 2 or 3 pay in the league. His quarterback, general manager, head coach. He pays his people. A lot of owners skimp on that, struggle with that, but they have beautiful facilities. Miami's owner was the highest graded owner, Stephen Ross. Seriously? He's a real estate magnate from New York. Shocker. His Miami real estate is amazing. And he loves to show it off to all his billionaire friends. That's what a lot of owners do, i.e. Jerry Jones. Look at my facilities. I'd rather you take care of the players and the coaches. I'm sorry, I'm not a big facilities guy. I don't want them to be a dump, but a stadium is a workplace. Facilities are a workplace. The Cowboys have lush facilities, and they've been a soft franchise for 25 years. 7 of the last...
All right, guys. So he insinuated, this is the problem I have with that take. I like what Colin says more often than not. He insinuates that because the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins have these great facilities, that they're soft. He insinuates that because the Kansas City Chiefs don't pamper their players, then a grizzled sport, a grizzled team, this is football after all, the team is better. Listen, this is what I have about debate. This is what I hate about discourse. This is what I hate about sports talk, and really all opinions in the world, is that Colin used the NFLPA survey. He didn't take in information and then shape his opinion. He already had his opinion set. And he used new information to bolster it. If the Kansas City Chiefs would have finished first in the NFLPA survey, they finished 31 out of 32nd, second last. If they would have finished first, second, third, he would have gone on the show and said, this is how you go about building a franchise. You take care of everyone. You get the facilities right. You make sure they have a good place to work. It didn't matter what the survey said. He was going to come in, and he was going to hoist up the Kansas City Chiefs and what they've done recently. And he was going to belittle the Miami Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys, regardless of what it said. This is what I want to do for the next 2 weeks that I host this show. And I hope I try to do this as best as I can. More often than not, I fail. Don't let new information entrench your old opinions. Take information in and then shape your opinions around that information, not the other way around. We do this so often. Everyone does. Politics, sports, all these things. Like, off the top of my head, one thing that I do this about more often than not is Barstool Sports. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I'm not a big Barstool guy. I know some people say Chatterbox is the diet right version of Barstool. Whatever. That's okay. But I had my opinion of Barstool when I was 19 years old. And now every time that I see something new come out about Barstool, instead of taking in that information and creating a new opinion, I just get further entrenched. Same with Trevor Bauer. I had my opinion set on Trevor Bauer a decade ago. Didn't like him when he played for the Indians. New information comes out, and instead of, last year when he says all of this stuff was made up and put out against me, I didn't take that new information in and craft my opinion around it. I entrenched myself. Don't do that. It's okay to change your opinion. It's okay to have new takes. Don't use new information to entrench yourself in old opinions. And that's what I'm going to try to do for the next 2 weeks. And speaking of new information, Casey, give us the rundown.
The headlines for yesterday's news. Let's start with college hoops and scores. Duke beats NC State 79-64. Not much of a game there. Baylor beats in-state rival Texas 93-85. Today, Purdue is set to face off Illinois, where they are favored by 2.5 points. Illinois is, by the way, not.
That's so
not
interesting.
Purdue. Yeah, I feel like that's I was wondering and curious about your take on that, because you have Purdue at least making it to what, the Elite Eight? You think they're gonna break through the one and done mold?
Listen, this is the year that I've watched the least amount of college basketball probably in the last decade, and so I haven't watched a whole lot of Purdue. I'll admit that fronthand. But it seems unlikely that a team that has been this good for this long bounces early in the tournament again. I have a very poor opinion on basketball in the Big Ten. I don't think it's very good. We used to put 9 teams from the Big Ten in the tournament every single year, and almost universally they've got trounced. I think the Big Ten has had one champion in 30-plus years. That's Michigan State back in 2000. But it just seems unlikely that Purdue doesn't make a run this year.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like you're right in that they can't do it again. Like, it can't possibly happen 3 times in a row. Or is it 4? Would it be 4 times or is it 3?
I think it's 4.
If it's 4 times in a row, I have a
Right.
hard time believing that it would happen again. But
been outed by a double-digit seed the last 2 years. Obviously, Fairleigh Dickinson last year, and believe St. Peter's took him out in the Sweet 16 2 years ago.
yeah, something like that. I don't know. I would find it hard to believe that they would let that happen again, but they're Purdue, so it's hard to tell. Kansas State will head to Fog Allen Fieldhouse, where they'll be greeted by the Zebra, Bossman Trace, and Nicholas Kirby. That's going to be a fun game. We went there last year, right after the AFC, or not last year, 2 years ago now, right? After the AFC Championship game, and it was rocking. That place will leave you with your ears ringing.
Yeah, it was that was a cool experience. Trace kept hyping up Allen. Kansas State was obviously better than they were, and Kansas was better than they were last year. If you wanted me to give my opinion on Kansas, they keep getting top 10 votes in the AP, and I know the AP is trash, but like this Kansas team doesn't feel like a top 10 team, and I know I think they've beaten UConn. They have some really good wins, but I don't know. You watch them, and they don't. If they didn't have Kansas on the front of their jersey, I don't think they'd be a top 10 team. But that place is, if you're a college basketball fan, you got to be there at some point in your life.
To me, they remind me a lot of what I used to say about Pittsburgh. They play to their opponents. If it's a team that is super highly touted, super ranked, UConn, they're going to play their hardest against that team. If it's a team that's at the bottom of the Big 12, they might barely squeak by or even lose. That's basically what they've done this entire season. I feel like that's just their narrative at the moment. So that's what my take is on Kansas.
All right.
A team that we love on the program, and when I mean we, I mean our good friend Tom Brenneman, Ohio Bobcats. They travel up to play north in Buffalo. Elliott's alma mater, the Toledo Rockets, they come to Miami of Ohio.
Not his alma mater, but he went there.
Yeah, he claims it's his alma mater, so I'll give it to him. It's a big action game. Dayton Flyers go to St. Louis, and lastly, and we'll touch more on this later, the Cincinnati Bearcats are clinging on to the little life that they have left. They go to Oklahoma to have a chance to fight to stay relevant in the NCAA tournament.
If they win this game and then take care of West Virginia, I don't think they have to do much in the Big 12 tournament to kind of cement, at least like give themselves serious consideration for the tournament. Listen, I have not watched a whole, as I mentioned, least amount of college basketball I've watched in a decade. Haven't bet a whole lot on it. Part of the reason I haven't seen UC play a whole lot is they're not on cable. I don't know what the hell that's about. But it is what it is. It is what it is. This is a big chance to get the win. I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot because I don't have a whole lot to offer for that. But we will talk about it tomorrow, win or lose. So
Absolutely. We'll both be watching that probably sometime tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that wraps up my coverage of the college basketball front. Let me know if I missed anything, if you guys want to hear anything. I'm taking over for Elliott's spot, so this is going to be a little dodgy here and there. My first time doing this. So the Reds, let's talk about the Reds, because yesterday they handled business. And I know it's a spring training game, but you got to be a little excited. They take care of the Athletics 15-8 with 10 runs scored in the fifth off of an LA triple, a CES triple, multiple errors for the Athletics, including a Tyler Stevenson home run, CES hitting a home run. What a day for the Reds.
Christian Encarnacion Strand was listed 400 plus or something like that home run yesterday, and Ellie had one the day prior that was supposed to get like 460. The best part about this is the Reds could be lying. They could just 100% be lying. Just take a video of them hitting a home run like this one went 540 because the games aren't on television. You just like There's no video of the ball actually leaving the yard except for people in the stands. Shaky footage like you're watching Babe Ruth call his shot at Wrigley Field back in 1929. But it's not on TV, so they could just be making up how far these distances. But Tyler Stevenson, listen, as a non-Reds fan, do not count out Tyler Stevenson. Here's the thing about opinions and or at least public opinion is that typically when people are so low on a guy like they are on Tyler Stevenson, he'll do better than that. And typically when opinions are so high on a guy like a Matt McClain, he'll probably do a little worse than that. Just saying, normally public opinion isn't on the spot. So it's normally somewhere in the middle. I'm not counting out Tyler Stevenson. And it's so important to get the catching position right. So important. It's every great team has to have a great catcher.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Last score I'll read off is the Cubs lost 1-2 against the Padres. And then Scott Boras said Monday that just in this past week, 4 new teams have inquired about free agent pitchers Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. The extent of the interest is unknown, as are the teams, but Boras said that the calls for those players are beginning to pick up as the need for pitching increases. Is it going to happen? Are we going to see some more contracts come in the near future?
Yes. I think I kind of anticipated this, that once spring training would start. We had a over-under on that some of these guys wouldn't start the season on a team. They're too talented. Matt Chapman obviously signed with the Giants last week. Cody Bellinger signed with the Cubs 2 weeks ago. It seems likely that Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery will find a team here in the relative future. I think they'll both be on a roster opening day. And then gear up there, ramp it up so that they can be a part of the team when the season starts. Also, this might be Scott Boras. There's nobody in sports that is better at what he or she does than Scott Boras. I mean that wholeheartedly. No one is truly better. There's not an athlete better. There's not a coach better. Scott Boras always gets his guys top dollar. So it just seems likely that these guys will end up on a team, and maybe there is some smoke screens. Maybe there is some, Scott Boras just like, oh, you want to get these guys while you still can. Hot commodity coming over here. But hopefully one of them signs to a team from the north side of Chicago.
I'm sure you would love that.
Yes, I would.
I have 2 other things. I know you said that they're not as relevant in the MLB, but I thought I would just touch on them a little bit because I want to know what your thoughts are. This is apparently a historic deal, and I don't know if we really touched on it much, but Zach Wheeler agreed to a 3-year deal, $126 million extension. I think that puts him just above guys like Scherzer and Verlander. So what are your thoughts on that mega deal for the Phillies?
It's the highest value per year from an extension. I think straight-up free agents have gotten more money per year, but when it comes to an extension, Zach Wheeler is probably the most undersung ace in the league. Since 2019, I believe he leads all pitchers in Fangraphs WAR. I think he is just ahead of Garrett Cole in that matter. And part of the reason is because he's always out on the field. Like, he doesn't get hurt a whole lot. So Zach Wheeler is a great pitcher, and he's still right in the middle of his prime. 3-year deal for him. This makes a lot of sense, and congratulations. I mean, Zach Wheeler. I mean, if there's pitchers that deserve it, Zach Wheeler is certainly one of them.
Absolutely. And then Ronald Acuna Jr. is expected to be ready for opening day. That knee soreness, what they thought would have been a serious injury, turns out it's a nothing burger. Sounds like a little soft to me. Anyways, moving on. Former AL MVP Josh Donaldson retires after a 13-year career. Your thoughts on that?
I've always liked Josh Donaldson. He has one of the cooler nicknames in the MLB, the Bringer of Rain. He was the 2015 American League MVP. He's a guy that kind of bloomed late. He first came into the scene with the Oakland Athletics. I always have a place in my heart for the guys that come up later in their career. A Max Muncy, Josh Donaldson, just to name a couple. People don't realize this about Adrian Beltre. Adrian Beltre was a good player when he was young, but he really didn't become a Hall of – no one thought he was a Hall of Famer until he was like 33, 34 years old. Josh Donaldson really didn't hit his stride till he was almost 30. He won his MVP when he was 29 and had only been a good player for about a year before that, and he consistently was a pretty good bat. So congratulations, Josh Donaldson. Had a heck of a career.
Congratulations to Josh Donaldson. That brings me to the NFL, which is basically all my timeline and my feed. So it's going to be a little extensive here for the NFL talk. But yesterday, Jason Kelce officially announced his retirement, got on a podium, had a very emotional send-off. I'm going to play it here for us, and you can kind of tell how much the game of football meant to this guy.
Thanks for coming, guys. We'll see how long this lasts. Not a good start. There we go.
Yeah, and it's much more of the same thing. I was going to play another clip that I had prepared for this, but he definitely uses some explicits, so I'm not going to use that clip.
No cussing.
No cussing on this show. But he was just very emotional. He had a wonderful career, a legendary career at that. 7-time Pro Bowler, 6 All-Pro nods, a Super Bowl winner, and in his 13 years playing, PFF only gave him 19 sacks out of the 13 years that he played.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
Is there a guy that is more beloved in sports than Jason Kelce right now? And I mean, like, universally, everyone likes Jason. It's hard not to like the guy.
Yeah.
He shows up to his brother's Super Bowl drunk as hell, bare-chested.
Yeah.
Bare-chested, and he just seems like a lovable guy. He seems like a guy you want to hang out with.
Yeah, he definitely seems just like a guy that you could trust almost. I mean, he is the center. He's the guy that's calling all the protections, and he seems just like a good dude, like just a good bro. Would always be there for you no matter what. And yeah, I mean, I didn't play the rest of the interviews, but he also thanked his wife and his family, a good family man.
Yeah.
What's not to like about the guy?
So here's the thing: is this year, and I mentioned Lindsay was in the room. I haven't pulled her out yet. Jason Kelce was listed as the sexiest man alive this year. Is Jason Kelce sexy, Lindsay?
Not to me, but I
get it.
His personality, I get it, would enhance his looks, I think. So
Okay.
I can see it.
Okay.
You're not a fan of the big beard and the
Big burly
guy?
man.
That's just not
That's
for
not.
me.
It's not your
my type.
All right. Well, we're done putting her on the spot on telling if Jason Kelce's sexy or not. But yeah, Jason Kelce, one of the most beloved players in my lifetime. I saw another show. I think it was Dan Le Batard's show, which I actually liked. Put out. Is he one of the greatest Philadelphia athletes of all time? I mean, on that list, you would think of or beloved. They put beloved. Philadelphia sports athletes on that list. Dr. J, Allen Iverson, Chase Utley, and then had Jason Kelce on that list as well. Rocky Balboa does not count because he's not real.
Fake. Anyways, another legendary Eagles player, Brandon Graham, is set to return to the team. He was also contemplating retirement. He's coming back in 2024. He's a leader in the locker room, another guy that they're going to need if they're going to need to push for a Super Bowl. The Texans are rumored to be interested in trading for Eagles pass rusher Hassan Reddick. I thought that would be interesting to put in some rumors here. Kirk Cousins seriously considering moving his family to Atlanta, suggesting that maybe that the Atlanta Falcons are going to sign for him instead.
I don't want to do that bit because I know Justin Fields was heavily rumored to go to Atlanta, but all rumors around that are swirling is that Justin Fields has little trade market at the very moment. Yeah, very little trade market, and Kirk Cousins is the guy that everybody wants, which makes Kirk Cousins a better quarterback than Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's arguing that point at all. I'm sure maybe there'll be a trade done as soon as Kirk Cousins is done. It's kind of like that domino effect. Like we all said whenever Harbaugh would be hired that was going to be the downfall of all the other coaches. We would finally see the better picture there. Ended up not happening that way. I think Callahan actually was the first one hired. But anyways, continuing on from that, last rumor I have for us today. The Giants are absolutely done with Danny Dimes. Per Rich Eisen, the words I heard at the Combine multiple times were buyer's remorse. And even at the time, the pick seemed like ridiculous. They were like top 4 or top 5, and they picked Daniel Jones.
What's interesting about Daniel Jones is the constant insistent from the Giants that he's their guy, right? Like that's always felt weird to me that they are so like gung-ho. Danny Dimes he's a player. It feels almost like the Bears fans consistently insisting that Justin Fields is a guy. They're look at their stats. They're actually pretty similar, except for I would argue Daniel Jones has had a much better career. Then they give him the extension. It seems likely to me that the Giants do two things. That they have the 6th overall pick, right?
Yes.
They draft a quarterback with that 6th overall pick, and they let him play behind Daniel Jones for a year. That's what I would do.
Now, they already did that once with Eli Manning and Daniel Jones. You think they'll do it again?
Yes. That seems to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I mean, that would be probably the 4th quarterback taken off. I guess it just depends on who they get, like Michael Penix Jr. Maybe.
There's some rumors that Drake May might drop. That's sliding around that Drake May is going to drop to not be the 2nd overall guy. And for some reason, listen, I beat the drum on J.J. McCarthy that I think that he's going to be like, if he's a 2nd-round pick, I think that's a good 2nd-round pick, but it's becoming more and more likely that he is going to be like a top 15 pick. Someone said he's absolutely going to be the 4th quarterback taken overall. He measured well. He measured about 20 pounds heavier than people expected him to be, so he's bigger than because when he was in college, I think it was like 6'2", 195, something like that, 200 pounds. Now he's coming in at like 6'2", 220, which is that's
significant. Yeah.
That's an NFL quarterback. That feels like an NFL quarterback. But out of all the quarterbacks that I have a strong opinion on, I think JJ in the 2nd round is fair. That's fine. It's whatever. Because then you're not expecting him to be you want him to be a good quarterback and everything like that, but you're not expecting him to be top-tier franchise-type quarterback. But taking him like 10th overall, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know what the idea behind that is. It just doesn't seem logical to me. Anyways, moving on from the rumor side to the actual news. Bills announced that they are agreeing to terms on a trade to send Ryan Bates to Chicago for a 5th-round pick. Trade will be official on March 13th. Fuli Fatukasi had a birthday yesterday and then was shortly terminated after the announcement from the Jaguars. Cruel world in the NFL. Very cruel.
This happened with Charlie Culberson, and I don't want to – I'm going to muddy up the details here because I'm working straight off my dome here. But Charlie Culberson, who was the utility player for the Braves last year, I believe he celebrated something right before Father's Day. And to celebrate Father's Day, they had his father throw the first pitch. And they put this big post out about, congratulations to Mr. Culberson. He's going to be throwing the first pitch to his son here on Father's Day. What a poignant moment. And Charlie Culberson then got released the next day.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough.
Very tough.
It's business. It's a business. Listen, sometimes they wish you a happy birthday and they release you the next day. Sometimes your boss comes in and says, hey, you're not allowed being on the show anymore. Also, we're taking a 2-week trip out and seeing all these sporting events. We're going to go to Vegas. We're going to go to Arizona where it's nice and sunny and watch baseball for a week. And you stay home, Reid. Sometimes that happens too. Yeah. So I'm not bitter about it. I didn't want to go anyways. But yeah.
Now I'm getting some news coming through here. I'm going to get to some of the breaking news that's happening around the league. I didn't have it written down here, but there is some other cuts that have happened as I wrote out all this morning. So I'm going to get to those in just a second. Vikings announced that they officially terminated the contract of Alexander Mattison. Was not a good replacement for Dalvin Cook. Russell Wilson was also cut, and it is the NFL record for dead money in $85 million. And for context, that's more than the last 2 dead money records combined. Russell Wilson will get $39 million in cash from the Broncos in 2024, and this means that when he signs with the new team, that contract it could be just significantly cheaper because he's already getting $39 million.
It'll be so interesting when Russell Wilson, the Russell Wilson contract obviously was terrible, right? The trade, they traded 2 firsts and 2 seconds, Noah Fant, and then gave him a huge contract because what happened was the Rams won a Super Bowl doing that. They felt like they were close. They brought in a free agent quarterback. And now the conversation is what is the worst NFL contract of all time? Is it Deshaun Watson's in Cleveland, or is it Russell Wilson, who is now going to take an $85 million dead hit? The interesting thing about Russell Wilson is, and I'll get to this later if we have time, he was a good quarterback last year. He wasn't mediocre. He wasn't bad. He was good. And there's a team in the Bengals division that needs a quarterback. And even though they might not be searching for one, at least that's what the reports come, they should be searching for one. And if they get a guy like Russell Wilson, it'll make Lindsey happy. It'll make me very sad. I'll put it that way. The craziest part about Russell Wilson is despite being, like I said, good, like his stats, go look at his stats. They're pretty good. They wanted him out. Sean Payton wanted him gone, and they said, we'll swallow $80 million. We just don't want you here anymore. So him and Sean Payton must have just not gotten along at all. Like, think about how much disagreement there has to be that the team says, we'll take an $85 million dead cap hit to have you not on this team.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, he played really well too. I don't understand it, to be honest with you. I guess it just wasn't Drew Brees. Like, that's
right.
That's the only explanation that I have for it, is that he wasn't just fantastic, I guess. He was good, but not great. Whatever. Anyways, some breaking news that happened like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
CJ Uzomah was cut.
Yeah.
Former Bengal. He only had like 8 catches last year. He's been really not slowly, but rapidly declining in terms of production. But that offense was horrendous. Thoughts on CJ Uzomah?
CJ Uzomah had one of the game-winning catches the first game of the year when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. You guys might not remember that. In overtime, Joe Burrow connected with CJ Uzomah for like a 40-yard gain that set up the game-winning field goal. He obviously had some big plays. It was kind of thought as the heartbeat of that Super Bowl team. And when the Bengals let him go and brought in Hayden Hurst, everyone was like, well, I like CJ. And then Hayden Hurst put out the same offensive output, maybe even a little bit better. And then the Bengals didn't bring back Hayden Hurst. We brought in Irv Smith. We got lucky with Tanner Hudson and actually had more tight end output this past year than in years previous. I would like if the Bengals would just get a tight end, draft a tight end in the early rounds, or get someone that can stay around for the next couple of years. Dalton Schultz maybe. But CJ Uzomah, very fond memories of him in stripes.
Yep, and then just some other news that's happened around the league. The franchise tags were placed on some players like L'Jarius Sneed. Brian Burns just got franchise tagged. And some other guys that are expected to get franchise tagged, like Josh Allen for the Jags, Jalen Johnson for the Bears, Justin Madubuike for the Ravens, Michael Pittman Jr. for the Colts, Antonio Winfield for the Bucks, and some guys that are not expected to get the franchise tag. 2 guys in particular that I think you want to touch on here as we move forward.
Yep.
Chris Jones and Christian Wilkins.
All right, so yeah, here's the thing. We talked about the Cincinnati Bengals offseason and how it's labeled as the most important offseason in franchise history. I feel like we labeled it that way last year. I feel like we labeled that way 2 years ago. And I guess we're just going to keep labeling every offseason, but there's some credence that it's so important because the map of the franchise can be laid out right here and right now. And there's a lot of holes to fill. Defensive interior on the line, a right tackle, a wide receiver if T. Higgins goes away. It seems like he's going to be back, but you still got to have a plan for that in the future. Running back, if they get rid of Joe Mixon or if they keep Joe Mixon. Depth in the secondary. Those are important positions. Bengals obviously have the draft coming up. Bengals obviously have made a lot of free agent moves in the past couple years. And the point that I wanted to make was with all the money that the Cincinnati Bengals had, the route that makes the most sense to me, so evident. You got to look at what's available, the ways that you have to fill the holes, and what you have in terms of capital, whether it's picks, whether it's money. How can you complete your roster? With Christian Wilkins and Chris Jones being free agents, the Bengals, Tom, Trace, they like to say, if the Bengals don't do this, they're not serious contenders. I think if the Bengals don't get a serious defensive interior lineman, whether it be bring back DJ Reader, whether it be Wilkins, whether it be Chris Jones, what's the Ravens guy?
Justin Madubuike.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. But one of those guys, if they don't get one of those guys, then it's hard for me to take this offseason and say that the Bengals put their best foot forward. Because look at the holes that the Bengals have to fill. Defensive interior. Oh, look, the free agent pool is filled with them. Great guys. Not good guys, great guys. Now, I think Chris Jones is going to be a Chief. I don't think Chris Jones is going to go elsewhere. Something about that just makes me feel like the Chiefs are going to bring him, pay him a lot of money, make him the highest paid defensive interior lineman in the league. But Wilkins, DJ Reader, once again, Ravens guy.
Justin Madubuike.
Madubuike. I'm going to keep doing that. I snap, I point, you say Justin Madubuike. But you look at the other holes. Right tackle, Jonah Williams is gone. Right? How do the Bengals shore up that? There are multiple people looking at this NFL draft. And we're going to have Parker Blake on at some point in these next 2 weeks. We're going to try and bring him on because he's a big offensive line guy to talk about the offensive line. Multiple people are saying this is one of the best offensive line drafts ever. Ever. And I don't know about you, but as a Bengals fan, I'm tired of getting middling production from overpaying on free agent linemen. So when I look at the two biggest holes, interior defensive lineman and right tackle, you can shore up one in the draft. At least that's what they say. Maybe the Bengals don't do that, but that's what they say. And then the other one has a crop of free agents that are top tier, borderline elite. The roadmap makes so much sense. You get a free agent interior lineman. Get a big one, too. Bengals have top 5 most money to spend. And then you draft a right tackle. You draft a tackle early. First couple rounds. And do you perhaps get a stopgap? A guy that's been thrown around who hasn't been very good, but was a former first-round pick. Mekhi Becton. Get a guy like him. Someone to help fill the void if your rookie tackle isn't ready to play. Someone that you can say, all right, this is going to be our floor here. That makes sense. And as for the other positions that need to be filled up, you know my take on wide receiver. I think that it is behind offensive line. I think it's way more important than tight end. It's way more important than running back. But over the past 4 years, there's been a flood of great wide receiving talent. That's the way that the game's going. The way that the game is being played at the youth level is lending itself to better quarterbacks and better wide receivers now. I was talking yesterday. The talent of I was making a top 15 quarterback list, power rankings of them. We'll do that later in the week. But the talent of quarterbacks in the NFL is better perhaps than it's ever been before. And the reason for that is because guys are throwing the ball at a much younger level. Even 15, 20 years ago, you go to a high school football game, they run the ball. If they have 60 plays, they run the ball 55 times. That's not the case anymore. Teams are airing it out. And you're seeing it flood into the NFL. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm not overly worried about what happens with T. Higgins. I know we've made a big what to do about that. I'm not overly worried about what happens at the wide receiver position. I'm obviously not very worried about the running back position because we all know my take on that. We all know what your take should be on that, and they're very easy to replace. The positions that are hard to replace are tackle and interior defensive linemen. And it just seems so easy for the Cincinnati Bengals to grab a top interior defensive lineman and draft a good tackle based on what the speculation is on the talent level in offensive linemen this year. Casey, your opinions on getting a free agent, big name. I don't want a middling guy. I don't want it. I know Joe Goodberry, and you can bring up that tweet here in a second, but I know he put out a name of just some average D tackles, 1 techs, 3 techs.
Well,
and then you draft a tackle.
His list, so he put out a free agency mock draft, or not mock draft, but a free agency mock of what the Bengals would do. He had Mekhi Becton, DJ Reader re-signed, and then Javon Kinlaw. Not a fan. I'm not a fan of that. But, I mean, it's going to be very difficult for the Bengals to get a guy like Wilkins. One, because it's David Mulugheta agent, so that means that they're going to have to guarantee more than 1 year,
Right.
which they did with Orlando Brown Jr. He's not a Mulligetta agent, but he kind of broke that mold for free agents outside the Bengals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to spend on that. Now, when I think of the Bengals and what they were able to do the Super Bowl window and that Super Bowl year, that run where they got DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson, Awuzie, they found value on contracts that, you know, like Awuzie outperformed his contract. Everyone basically outperformed their contract that they signed, including guys like Von Bell, Hayden Hurst, all those guys.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to have to take. So you almost have to look at that list of guys on the defensive tackle side. I'm going to pull it up here for everyone to see because it's not great. It's not a great list. It's not a list that I'm very excited about, but it's a list nonetheless that we have to look at because out of this list, there's only 3 nose tackles, excluding DJ Reader. So that makes me feel like you almost have to get DJ Reader back.
That'd be a $20 million contract or
Like a
high
15
teens?
million. 15
Okay,
million.
15.
And then after that, the guys down below are your 3 techs, and they just don't add anything more than what maybe you could find in the draft to me. I think maybe out of all those, the Mike Dana, I don't know, though, because it seems like to me that the tag has really limited what the Bengals can do. It really has, because they could, like in theory, if they did spend the money like they do for David Mulligetta agents, if they go ahead and give Wilkins a $25 million a year contract, they're going to probably miss out on filling a depth guy for that right tackle spot you mentioned, like Mekhi Becton.
Right.
They're probably going to miss out on a tight end in free agency. They'll probably miss out on some safety depth. Like they'll only have a little bit of money to get one of those, probably, if they do that. And to me, there's a lot of holes that need to be filled. I think cornerback needs depth. I think you need a veteran in the backfield at safety.
Yeah.
I think that right tackle spot, you cannot go in the draft with that empty hole. Like you got to have some sort of answer there, whether that's Mekhi, which I'm not a fan of Mekhi Becton, but Jermaine Elmore, any of those guys that are stop fill-in guys.
I feel like it's a stopgap, though. Like I said, this draft has been labeled as a few things. It's supposed to be a very deep class in general. And the 3 positions that are the deepest are quarterback perceived, right? Last time that we thought we had a great quarterback class was 2021. It didn't work out very well. 2020 was a great quarterback class. Wide receiver, it's now our 4th consecutive year with a great wide receiving class. I expect that to continue, not every year, but most years. And then offensive line. And like I mentioned, I am tired of getting guys like Al Collins, Riley Reef, Orlando Brown was fine, but all these guys that are on the interior line as well, that you're spending top dollar for these free agents because that's how valued offensive line are. If you get a great offensive lineman in the draft, you hold on to them and you pay them what they're worth. They don't go in free agency very often. I'm tired of overpaying for linemen. I'd rather take my chances on a draft that is, once again, very deep at that position and draft a tackle. And
I'm with you.
A couple weeks ago, I was saying that the Bengals should draft a pass catcher in the first round. I'm all on board with a tackle in the first round. Now, I'm talking myself into that.
I think this year, unlike other years, offensive tackle, especially the right tackle spot, and pass catcher are some of the deepest I've ever seen in the 5-6 years
Right.
I've been really just studying the draft and learning about guys, just being a giant fan of the draft process. And on the other side of it, though, like the value that you could get from defensive tackle, like if we're going to continue to go down that route where they need to find a free agent guy, I don't know if they can do that. I don't know if they can spend the money and it makes sense because you can find a guy like Braden Fisk, the guy that just ran that 4.78.
No, yeah, very athletic.
You could
Rascal,
find a
right?
guy in
That's
the
a second-round guy.
Yeah, you could find a guy in the second round, third round that can fill in that spot, and you don't have to spend all that money to get that penetrating 3-tech. You could find a guy like T'Vondre Sweat and not have to worry about signing DJ Reader. And that's really, honestly, what it boils down to is, do you keep DJ Reader around, or are you going to have to find a nose tackle on top of that when you sign Christian Wilkins? Because that list is even shorter for the nose tackles. I don't know if you saw that, but there's only 3 guys on there. And, again, Roquan Davis and Tierre Tart, and I don't even know who Fotu is. I mean, there's some guys on here I just don't even know.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the last 5 Super Bowl winners have had a significant pass rush from the middle. Now, 3 of them are Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald's the one.
Yeah.
And I believe who was the defensive tackle for the Bucks?
Vita Vea.
Yeah, Vita Vea. So the last 5 Super Bowl winners have had a pass. It's king.
Oh yeah,
It's
king.
if you can push the pocket back, it is king. And that's why I just, it seems, you're telling me it's not economically possible, feasible, based off what they've done with Joe Burrow, based off what they've done with T. Higgins.
It's more about T. Higgins than anything, in my opinion. If they did not tag T. Higgins and they extended him, I think they could make it work. But I mean, like they basically gave up having the ability to get an extra $8 million, which I think that could make a push for some of these contracts. But there's going to be plenty of other teams because, like we just said, it's a premium. Mm-hmm. Interior pass rush is a premium, and guys like Wilkins are probably going to get top dollar because they're the youngest, right, and they're one of the more top dog interior pass rushers that are on the market right now. Now, Chris Jones, he's also probably going to – here's my argument too is what's the difference between Wilkins at 25 and getting like Chris Jones for like 28, 29? I'd rather just go get Chris Jones.
But Chris Jones is better. There's also, I think, valid concerns that Christian Wilkins last year was by far his best sack output, 10, right? I don't think he's had over 5 other than last year.
Yeah.
I think that's somewhere around that. So it seems like maybe it's a buy and high situation, which does concern me. But there is youth. Christian Wilkins is a great guy. But I don't know. I want more pass rush in the interior. If DJ Reader that more than soothes, more than does enough. And I know he's more of a run stopper than a pass rusher. But if you get a big guy like DJ Reader in there, then I feel better about it than going to the draft and relying on youth, as opposed to the idea on the offensive side, which was draft a tackle in the first 2 rounds, get maybe a stopgap to fill if you need a veteran presence to at least bring up your floor, and then you go from there.
I do think the DJ Reader path is the smartest path, and I know that kind of kills people. Their dreams of having like the top dog free agent again, like the Orlando Brown thing. But you got to remember, last year they basically admitted defeat by getting Orlando Brown Jr. Mm-hmm. Their plan failed last year.
Right.
That was not their plan, and I don't want to see that happen again, where they basically fail again in what they want to do. And I feel like it should be retaining DJ Reader because you get more bang for your buck if he's exact same production. I think the reason why he's expected to get less money is because the injury.
Right.
And he's already shown to be able to come back from that type of injury once before. It's on the other leg, which is a little concerning. But to me, I would rather shore up the run game too, because the Bengals really struggle in that area as well, and try to take a risk on a high-end athlete in the draft in like the 3rd round, or maybe even get your replacement ready for DJ Reader with like T'Vondre Sweat, if you can do a short-term deal with Reader. I don't know what that looks like, but I think DJ Reader is safer than going and getting Christian Wilkins, because you still have more money to play with Reader. You get an extra $10 million. That's another depth guy or a solid starter, you know?
Right.
So
Absolutely. All right. We exhausted Cincinnati Bengals talk here in the first hour. We're going to have Austin Elmore up at 11. At 11:30, we're supposed to hear from the guys on the road. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But, Casey, we got to pay the bills around here. This is, once again, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Casey, take away the ads.
yeah, the Bengals report was brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency and
Productivity.
The path to innovation begins here. Visit encore.tech. And I lost my little bottle of water somewhere, my Pawnee water. But Pawnee water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio, uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. And we have a new sponsor. We just introduced it yesterday. Game Time.
That's right.
Reid, did you have a story that you wanted to tell
so
about Game
listen,
Time?
I don't know how familiar you guys are with Game Time, but it is almost the exclusive app provider that I use and have for years, even before this sponsorship. Just didn't talk about it because they weren't paying us. But here's the thing. So a couple years ago, I was walking into the first game. I mentioned CJ Uzomah game. Remember that 2 years ago? The first game when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. They played the Vikings week 1. Brought all my friends together. Last second, wife wanted to go. And I didn't realize we didn't buy a ticket. So what do? You pull up Game Time. They let you see exactly where you're going to sit. They have the best price guaranteed match. And they show you up front what you're going to pay in entirety. Not just the price of the ticket, but fees, everything. It lets you know exactly how much you're going to pay. And walking into the stadium, pulled it up, bought a ticket, immediately got it, instant download. Wife got in. And that was back when tickets for the Bengals were about $15. Now they're about $200 for that exact same game. But Game Time always has the best apps. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off on your first purchase. I believe the Muskies play in town tomorrow. No, they go up to Hinkle, but download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also going to do a new thing. We mentioned Lindsay's in the room, so I've tasked Lindsay, our intern. I say, hey, can you give us one thing to talk about every day? So this is the world according to a college-age 22-year-old girl.
Yeah, so right now, me and my friends are really obsessed with the new season, Love is Blind. There's so much drama going on in it. If you don't know Love is Blind is, it's basically where a group of men and women get together and they're in these like pods, but there's a wall in front of them and they're getting to know each other. And at the end of like 2 weeks, I think it is, they propose. That's their goal.
Would you marry someone that you have not seen?
No.
And you've just talked to for 2 weeks?
No, because I hear like the dates are like way longer than what they show. I think they might be like 6 to 8 hour dates or something like that. But also, I don't know. I feel like it's going to sound really superficial, but I really wanted to see what that person looks like. Like, I just don't think I could marry someone that I don't know what they look like.
You and I talked about this because she told us last week, have you guys watched Love is Blind? I was like, I don't watch reality TV shows a whole lot. And she goes, watch Love is Blind. The drama is so spicy. And I was like, okay. Turn it on. Me and my wife watched it. It is spicy. It is very spicy. I brought this. You know who Laura is, right? She was engaged to Jeremy.
Yes.
Right? That was
Jeremy,
her match.
Yeah.
And Jeremy cheated on
her with Sarah Ann.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Casey, can you do me a favor and you pull up Laura? And then can you also pull up, everyone talks about Chelsea and how Chelsea says that she looks like Megan Fox. She doesn't look like Megan Fox entirely. She kind of looks like Megan Fox if you put Megan Fox's face on Jay Leno's head. I know that sounds terrible, but if I showed you a picture of Chelsea, I think you'd understand it. But Laura, you have never seen the show Big Mouth.
No, but I did look up who you said that she looked like, and that is crazy.
So, Casey, can you get a picture of Lola from Big Mouth and Laura from Love is Blind? And immediately, we turn this show on, And immediately my wife turns to me and she has some one-liners one time. She goes, "That looks like Lola from Big Mouth." And oh my goodness, yes she does. But thank you. This is the talk of the town, isn't it?
Well, did you also know that Chelsea, how she was talking to Trevor?
Yes.
He had a girlfriend the whole time. His the ex has come out and put the receipts on about how he's just going on there for
So
the
Trevor.
fame. The one with the mullet and the.
Oh, he was dating somebody the entire time?
Yeah, because he told the girlfriend, his original girlfriend outside the show, that he was gonna go on for just the fame, get them famous, money, all this, and then now they're not together anymore because I think he really took it serious and stuff like that. So, a lot of drama.
Nick Mormon said, "I want to hear Reid try Lola's voice from Big Mouth." I tried it yesterday off air. I can't do it. I can't do the Nick Kroll, not the Reds GM, but the comedian. He voices Lola. I tried it. Casey, do we have those yet?
Yeah, so here's Laura.
All right. This is Laura from Love is Blind. All right? You get a good picture of her. All right. Now do Lola from Big Mouth. This is Laura. Tell me that doesn't look just like her. Tell me that doesn't look just like her.
I mean, it's uncanny. I mean, that's incredible, Reid. The comparison is unmatched.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks, Lindsay. Thank you, Casey, for the ads. We are going to get to Austin Elmore.
In just a second.
In just a second. I told him, this is what I love about a true professional like Austin Elmore, is I say, hey, can you get on? We need to do a little segment around 11 o'clock. And he gets on about 10:55. He is so prompt. Listen, I'm not a professional. Austin is a professional. You tell me to come on at 11, I'm coming on at 10:58. It's probably why I didn't get to go on the van. Once again, I didn't want to go on the road trip. Even if they would have invited me, I didn't get invited. If they would have invited me, I wouldn't have gone. All right? Stop asking. If I get one more DM saying, "Reid, why aren't you on the van?" I didn't want to go. I swear. Why would I want to go to Vegas? Why would I want to go to Arizona? It doesn't sound like fun. I'd rather be here in Hamilton. But without further ado, it's my man Austin Elmore, co-host of Cincy 360 on ESPN 1530. Audie, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Why aren't you on the van?
See, I knew you were going to ask this. I didn't want to be on the van. No, I didn't get invited. I don't know if I've said that.
Is that true, or are you just saying that?
I swear I did not get invited. So in the past 3 weeks, Austin, my boss has kicked me off the show. And he took a 2-week vacation to Arizona, Vegas, Colorado, and didn't invite me. Am I pouting about it? No, because I'm a brave little toaster. And
Are you updating the resume?
Yeah, Cincy 360.
Okay. No, it might be something to think about.
All right. I think I'm gonna get fired here soon. Would you go in a van for 36 hours? You're good friends with Elliot. Used to work with him.
Yeah.
Would you be in a van for 36 hours?
No chance. Not with Elliot. No.
Listen. I agree. I absolutely
agree.
agree.
With everybody else? Yeah, probably. With Elliot, no.
Kirby, Trace, they seem like nice
Kirby's
guys.
great. Yeah, Trace, lovely. Yeah.
Right.
Elliot.
All right, so we didn't talk, and I didn't want to talk, but Bearcats do play Oklahoma, and I don't have a whole lot to add to that conversation. You text me and said, "Hey, listen, it's a must-win game." Don't know what else don't know what else to bring into that one. So you know what, we're gonna avoid that.
I feel like we've said the same thing about the Bearcats over and over and over from the beginning of the season until now, and it just keeps culminating in the same game over and over and over again. And that's what's going to happen tonight. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's another must-win game. We've had about 13 of them, and you know what's funny about the must-win games? Sometimes they lose, and the next one just matters. So maybe the previous must-win games weren't must-win games. We talked about 45 minutes about the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes. Other people have labeled this offseason as the most important offseason of our lifetime, maybe the most important offseason of the Bengals franchise history. A lot of holes to fill. What do you think the biggest hole to fill is for the Bengals this offseason?
For me, it's the defensive line. It's always been the defensive line. The way that they were gashed on the ground and the way that being gashed on the ground led to explosive plays through the air against this defense and chunk plays all over the field, it just put them in such a precarious situation all season long in which they had their backs up against the wall and they're giving up yards and they're giving up points and they're making it harder on an offense that was already hampered for as long as it was with an injured Burrow. And then when Burrow goes out, just not being able to stop the run first and foremost, and nobody opposite of Trey Hendrickson that can get consistent pressure. And additionally, pressure from the interior of the defensive line. They don't have that guy. DJ Reader obviously goes down with an injury. BJ Hill made some plays here and there, but has lost, I think, the consistent disruptiveness that we saw earlier in his career. And, Sam Hubbard was banged up, and you didn't get as much from Miles Murphy as you hoped. Came on strong at the end of the year, but still a lot there. So to me, the front seven and primarily the interior of the defensive line, somebody that can stop the run and provide pressure from the interior, is the most important thing.
Yeah, we talked a lot about, Christian Wilkins comes out and he's going to be a free agent. Obviously, everyone knows that the best interior defensive lineman in the league right now, I think he took that title from Aaron Donald, is Chris Jones, and he's a free agent, though I kind of assume that he's going to wind up in Kansas City when all is said and done. But the last 5 Super Bowl winners have been won with an elite pass rush on the interior defensive line. How important is it, do you think, not just like DJ Reader's, I don't think he's a good run stopper, but he doesn't push the line back. When you push the pocket back, you give the defense such an advantage. Do you think the Bengals should go out and seriously try to get a guy like Chris Jones or Christian Wilkins?
Yeah, I don't know if those guys are going to be I don't know if that's going to be within their price range, and Wilkins especially because he's a David Mulligetta client. And we know how those negotiations typically go between the Bengals and David Mulligetta. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you look back at the last several years, that has been where their focus has been in free agency and in the offseason. DJ Reader, free agent acquisition. Trey Hendrickson, free agent acquisition. BJ Hill, they traded for during training camp. Larry Ogunjobi, who they have missed desperately, somebody they went out and got and was able to provide that pass rush from the interior during their Super Bowl run. So that has been a point of emphasis for them in free agency the last couple of years. And if you look at the draft class this year, there's maybe 1 or 2 guys that you feel like could come in and be impactful, but you don't know if they're going to be there at 18, and they're certainly not going to be there the second round when your pick comes up. And so to me, I think it puts a bigger emphasis on being active around the defensive line during free agency. I don't know that Jones and Wilkins are in the price range. Matabuke was really interesting, but it looks like the Ravens are going to put the tag on him. There's a couple of other interesting names out there. Jonathan Allen was floated around from Washington. He can be really disruptive on the interior. I do think they'll try to get Reader back to kind of stuff up the run a little bit. But there are a few names out there, the Ashawn Robinsons types of guys that can come in and be impactful and be a part of that rotation, assuming BJ Hill is not a cap casualty with that $7 million or whatever it is that they would save by cutting him. But yes, I think that's going to be a big priority for them, is somebody in the free agency period.
One uncomfortable conversation I think Bengals fans aren't having enough. It's starting to come up now. Was his last year talk on this defense is we're not getting enough pass rush. We're not getting to the quarterback enough. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson does it at an elite clip. Top of the league in sacks. Did he break the franchise record? I think he did break the franchise record. But you start asking yourself, all right, well, one guy's doing it at an elite clip, and we're not getting enough. Is the other guy pulling his weight? That's obviously Sam Hubbard. Everyone wants to talk about how they need more pass rush. Nobody wants to talk about how you get there. Hometown kid, Ohio State guy. Everyone loves him here in town. He's a great person, Sam Hubbard. But is it time that we start looking elsewhere in the DN? Like, do we think Miles Murphy should be the starting defensive end opposite of Trey Hendrickson next year? Or do you think it's
really
a role between the switch?
Really interesting to find out how they go about this, because Sam is a elite run defender and has been from the moment he stepped in the NFL. Trey Hendrickson's been the exact opposite. So when you think about an offensive game plan, it's quite simple. We're going to run the ball away from Trey Hendrickson. We're going to get the quarterback outside the pocket towards Sam Hubbard and get away from Trey Hendrickson. That way, we're going to run the ball at Trey Hendrickson. We're going to run it away from Hubbard. So that sort of thing has been easy for them to figure out. Myles Murphy, not as big of an impact player. Joseph Osai disappeared for most of this season, and he was supposed to be an impact player as well. So I'm curious to see if they can get something out of Sam, get creative with Sam in a different role. Maybe he's the guy who comes in on the interior during those pass rush downs. Maybe that fits him better than being the edge on the outside. Maybe Cam Sample gets more of those opportunities. Obviously, Myles Murphy. So, yeah, the Bengals have kind of gone out of their way over the last few weeks to make it known that Sam Hubbard was not 100%, basically playing on one leg, that he had to have surgery and all that, and that they expect him to be back at a more consistent level. So I think that's interesting. I think it just kind of goes to show the type of player that Sam is. But, yeah, I think if you look at the film and you evaluate this defense and you say, yeah, Trey is great, but Sam isn't. And Joseph Osai wasn't there. And Murphy was inconsistent. And Cam Sample is primarily a run defender. That part of the defensive line has to be better in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, they're certainly going to need to take a step up. That's good stuff. Sam Hubbard moving, maybe playing a different role on pass or on passing downs. That's certainly interesting. All right, big news about T. Higgins. Obviously, the Bengals tagged him. We talked about what the Bengals were going to do for this role for months, seemingly months, and really actually years, because we knew that this was an inevitability. They tag him. It seems most likely, based on the history of the Cincinnati Bengals, that he just plays on his tag. And next year, you wave goodbye, you shake his hand, say thanks for your service, T. Higgins. But you're in charge of player personnel. You have T. Higgins where he's at right now on a franchise tag. What do you do with T. Higgins?
I would trade him. That's what I would do right now. I just think the acquisition of draft picks becomes vital over the next several years. And we just talked about it. There's a hole on the offensive line. There's a hole in the running back room. There's a hole in a way on the linebackers. There's a hole certainly on the defensive line. There's a lot of holes to fix on a team that has to spend a lot of money on their quarterback and their wide receiver, and Evan McPherson's going to get an extension here soon as well. So there's a lot of money that has to be shelled out, and there's a lot of parts of this offense and defense that need to be fixed. And so to me, acquiring draft picks at low cost is going to be the best way to do that. So I would try to trade T for a top 40, top 45 pick in the draft, get another wide receiver. That's another hole. Tyler Boyd is more than likely gone. Tight end, we talk a lot about Brock Bowers potentially being the pick. Like, there are holes everywhere, and you need as many opportunities to fill them as possible. I think the strategy that makes the most sense is to trade T. Higgins. But I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think that they negotiated Burrow's contract, and they've got this extra room with the cap to say, okay, listen, we can spend more this year to get closer and get a chance to run it all back with everybody healthy this year, and we'll keep Joe happy in doing that and keep T. Higgins around and see what happens next year. I mean, hell, they could theoretically franchise tag him again next year for, I think, $27 million. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but all the other money starts to come in. That's where it starts to get hairy. But I think they're going to keep him around. I think what you said is probably going to be accurate, that they'll let him go. But at the same time, I think the best move for the organization right now would be to trade him.
I 100%. I think if they get
and I want to say, I don't think keeping him is a bad move. I think
Correct.
It's a good move. I think trading him is a great move. I think if you would have let him walk this year, that's an awful move.
Right. Out of all the possibilities, and really there's only two at this moment. Well, three. You could still extend him. Out of the three possibilities, I'm okay with all of them. The one I favor is to trade. And the reason, you mentioned it, if you can get a top 40 pick for T. Higgins, if someone calls you up and says, hey, we'll give you our early second-round pick or our late first-round pick for T. Higgins right now, you don't hang up the phone. You call the league office and you get it done then and there. And the reason is, and people often say, well, you don't know what you're going to get with a wide receiver in the draft. You know what you have with T. Higgins, who's a phenomenal wide receiver. I challenge them. And Austin, I don't know if you've seen this, but go look at the first-round picks of the last 4 drafts that are wide receivers. There's been 21 of them drafted. 16 of them are great players. 16. That's not an unknown quantity. That is as surefire as you're going to get in the draft. and it's continuing to get better. It's another great wide receiver draft. So I don't think they're going to get a top 40 pick for T. Higgins because other teams know this well, that this is a great wide receiver draft. So why would you go take a guy for a year and extend when you can just draft a guy? Neither here nor there. All right, offensive line. Free agent, draft, or a hybrid of the both? How do you replace that right tackle?
Hybrid of the both. I think that the draft is probably the best place for them right now just because of the amount of offensive tackles in this draft. And we saw it certainly on display at the Combine. There are guys all over the place that can come in. I read a mock draft this morning from Dane Brugler of The Athletic, and he had tackles going off the board all over the place before the Bengals at 18. And I think that becomes a really interesting possibility is if that were to take place. Number one, you would like to have something done in free agency prior to the draft where you feel good enough about it if, the draft comes and goes and you don't get that right tackle that you want. That also provides a lot of flexibility potentially for them to trade back in this draft, which I don't think is really all that unlikely. I think the Bengals might trade this pick back a little bit and to have the same conversation we just had to acquire more of those picks, especially if they're not moving on from T. Higgins. But that being said, it's a much better draft class than it is a free agent class. In the free agent class, obviously, you're going to be required to spend a lot more money. But you also look around and you say, yeah, Jake Browning, that was a cool story last year, but I'm tired of Joe Burrow being hurt. And, the calf injury is not the offensive line's fault. And the wrist injury altogether is not the offensive line's fault. But the overarching point is the Bengals are not as good of a team when Joe Burrow is not on the field, and you have to do everything in your power to protect him. I think what's really interesting is what if a J.C. Latham and a Brock Bowers are both on the board when the Bengals are on the clock? We're right back to the essential Chase versus Sewell debate.
Right.
And the first time they made the right decision, Penei Sewell, by the way, is one of the best left tackles in football. They would have been good either way. And now they're kind of in that same situation because there's probably going to be a wide receiver around that pick too that they're going to really, really like. There's going to be some guys that they can add to the offense. But to me, it in terms of priority for the Bengals this offseason, it's defensive line, offensive line, then everything else in my mind.
Yeah, listen. Those are premiums, right? The lines, the hog mollies, the front guys. Those
hog
are
mollies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hog
mollies.
You never heard that one?
I've never heard that.
That is
that
from.
What they used to call you back in the day?
No, fullback here. Fullback. I was
come on now.
Lower in that show.
I see you working, biggin'.
Yeah. That was from NCAA football. I think it was
mollies, really?
Yeah, called the hog mollies up front. But yes,
what do you think about Arch Manning not going into the game at NCAA football?
That read to me as he said, "My name's worth more than $600." But
I saw somebody say he doesn't want to be a 59 overall backup.
That'd be funny.
That's kind of an idea.
Could be. All right. Before I let you go, you talked about the biggest priorities are defensive line, offensive line. The secondary got torched last year, but you saw some shine. You saw some shine. Guys like Jordan Battle, Cam Taylor-Britt came through and kind of cemented himself as the cornerback of the future, in my idea, of the secondary. How much faith do you have in this secondary going into next year?
Feel pretty good about it. I think the other question, in a way, like we talked about with Sam Hubbard, is where is Dax Hill going to play? What is his role going to be? How can Lou Anarumo get creative with him? I think you feel really good about Jordan Battle. I think you feel really good about Cam Taylor-Britt. You're okay about Dax Hill, and you're okay about DJ Turner. I think DJ Turner kind of hit a wall last year. I mean, he played into the college football playoff and obviously got trounced in that game, but then had some really bright moments his rookie year and then also looked like a rookie at times, almost identical to the rookie season of Cam Taylor-Britt. And so I think that if those two were on a similar trajectory, the Bengals are in really good shape. I love everything that I saw out of Jordan Battle. It's just how can you get consistency out of Dax Hill? And everything is connected. When the defensive line's not playing well, the linebackers don't play well. When the linebackers don't play well, that creates holes that the safeties can't fill. And I think a lot of the times last year when they were giving up so many explosive plays, we were saying, God, they miss Jesse Bates and they miss Von Bell. But I think a lot of it is connected to their inability to rush the passer. And so if you improve that part, you improve your secondary as well. You make their life easier. I totally expect them to draft another cornerback, and they might draft a cornerback in the first 2 rounds. That's the weird part about this team. And again, the idea of them trading back is they've got so many holes that you want to be able to fill. Chidobe Awuzie more than likely going to be a free agent as well. So you have to address that. The secondary was concerning at times last year, but I think with another year of them kind of playing together and with Lou Anarumo still being there, I think it can be a good thing for them. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, the one thing that troubles me most about the defense is the step back that Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt took. And what troubles me most about that is we go into next year, just hope they play better, because that's the answer, right? They're going to play linebacker next year. No, hope they play better. Austin, before I let you go, we're going to do something here. I know you're a big music guy. What's your favorite album of all time? You have rank them all
album of all time.
You on Cincy 360, you do rank them all the time, right? You do all these things. What's your favorite album of all time?
Probably Eminem's Relapse album.
Eminem's Relapse. That's what, like 08? That was later.
Something
Slim.
along those lines.
That was later. Slim.
I don't remember for sure.
Do you think Eminem's the GOAT?
Yeah.
That's a terrible take.
I don't think it's particularly close. It's like him, Lil Wayne's up there, Wheezy Baby.
Oh my goodness! Did you stop listening to music in 2009?
Most of the time, yeah. That's when I fell in love with football.
Fair enough. Austin, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you hopping on the show. Be nice to all the talkbackers. If you get a Kermit that says some disparaging things about your other co-host, I promise it wasn't me.
Okay. Well, I hope it was.
See you, Audie. All right. Austin, he is the man. We talked a lot about Bengals today, over an hour. He what stinks is I have him on the show, and he says all these nice things. He's great talking about the Bengals. We agree on so many things, and then he ends it, and I put him in a bad spot. I said, what's your favorite album of all time? And he picks like the 5th best Eminem album, and then says Eminem's the best rapper of all time. Just a terrible, terrible take. Eminem, golly. Just doesn't do it for me. He was great at the beginning, but man, in his later years, just not very good. I don't know how you can say he's the GOAT over a guy like Kendrick Lamar, Kanye, Biggie, any of them. But that's neither here nor there. So we're getting an update from the guys on the road about 11:30, presumably we are supposed to. And we've talked enough about sports over the past hour, a lot about the Bengals. Tomorrow we will talk about Cincinnati, how they did against Oklahoma. We will get a preview. Paul Fritchner will be on the show tomorrow, and we will talk about the Xavier Musketeers as they go into their last week, kind of hoping for a Hail Mary to get back into this tournament picture. But they got some big news. Tyler Kolek, the guy from Marquette, point guard from Marquette, isn't going to be playing this weekend. So that's big news for Xavier, and we'll talk about that tomorrow with Paul. But, guys, I asked him what his favorite album of all time is. And I'm going to do that. I told Lindsay. I told Casey. I don't know if Casey actually did a top 5 list of his favorite albums, but I love music. I put this tweet out last week that I said I think music's the second best thing that humans do. I think love's first, so you should listen to a lot of music and you should love often. That's just my life advice from old Readeroo. But I said, what are your 5 favorite albums? Casey doesn't talk a whole lot about music, so I'm very interested to see what his favorite albums of all time is. Some people don't listen to albums in entirety. I don't know how you guys listen to music, but when I listen to music, I literally, more often than not, I start at the first song, listen on down. And if I can only listen to a couple songs, I'll pick like a 3-song set in the middle of an album, and I'll listen to those in a row. So much, though, that if I have a playlist playing and I hear a song that I like, I expect the next song in my brain's trained that the next song to come out should be the next song in the album. And then when it's some other artist, it like short circuits my brain. I don't know how to react to that. But Casey, are you?
You're gonna ask me first?
I'm not gonna ask you first. I'm just making sure that you are ready to go.
I'm gonna be ready by the time you get to me.
All right. Greg Sandlin said Puddle of Mud. Alexandra McAllister said Kingdom Hearts soundtrack is number 1 for Casey. That'd be interesting. All right, Lindsay, I'll have you go second.
Okay.
We're going to go down from the top 5, all right?
Okay.
My 5th favorite album of all time, as I pull this up, is an album I haven't actually listened to for some years, but when I was in high school, this was my favorite band. This is their best album. It was their debut album, 10, from the band Pearl Jam. If you guys watch the show, you know I like grunge. One of the best concerts I've ever been to is I saw Pearl Jam at Wrigley Field. A fun story from that was I'm sitting up in the rafters at Wrigley Field, like as far back as you can be from the stage, which is in center field, and Eddie Vedder comes out there, and he starts hyping up the next song. He's like, hey, I'm going to have a world champion come out on the stage and sing the next song. Part of the three-peat back in the 90s, the Chicago Bulls Hall of Famer. And we're like, dude, Michael's going to be here? Michael Jordan's going to sing a song with Pearl Jam? Then it was Dennis Rodman. And I was like, that makes more sense. Michael wouldn't do that. Dennis Rodman would do that. But coming in at number 5, I have 10 from Pearl Jam. Lindsay, what's your 5th favorite album?
So my 5th is it's because it's way back. It was the first concert I ever went to. And it's just like an OG thing. It's Taylor Swift's Red album, her original Red album, not like the new one she did.
People don't give Taylor Swift enough credit. And I think it just started that she's finally like breaking through, that people got to recognize that she's not just like some icon, that she actually makes really good music too.
Yeah, I think she makes really good music, and she gets a lot of crap now because of the whole Kelsey football debacle.
In this city, certainly. Casey, you got number 5 for us yet?
I do not have number 5 yet.
All right, we'll go to number 4. So I did grunge. I have music tastes that kind of span the spectrum. My 4th favorite album of all time. This artist only brought out 2 albums ever, and they are both fantastic. And if you're a fan of this artist, there's often debates about which album is better. But coming in number 4, I'm doing Channel Orange from Frank Ocean. I think that's better than Blonde. I listened to that song once again. It matters when music really started hitting you. When I was like 17 is when I really got into music. And Channel Orange, I still listen to it, and it still hits the same 12 years later as it did when I first listened to it. So Channel Orange from Frank Ocean. You know any Frank Ocean?
A little bit.
A little bit? All right. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is by Jack Johnson, and it's his In Between Dreams album.
Jack Johnson? Mm-hmm. Banana Pancakes guy?
Mm-hmm. I really like Better Together. I like those songs, yeah.
Yeah. That's the kind of music you listen to like when you just set the vibes right.
Yeah,
right?
like when I'm on the beach, I play that's the playlist that I go to.
All right. Casey, we got an update.
I think my number 5 is Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
That is the best-selling debut album of all time.
Is it really?
And that has Welcome to the Jungle. Is that because your Bengals fandom?
Correct. That is correct.
There's Axl Rose, who sounds terrible today, at one point was maybe one of the most underrated singers. Like, because Guns N' Roses don't have a whole lot of, like, poignant songs. Like, it's normally just, like, really hard rock and everything like that. But Axl Rose used to be a fantastic singer. Not so much anymore.
I got my number 4 if you want that.
Give me number 4.
Take Care, Drake. That was my childhood right there.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny about Take Care from Drake is that I got an iTunes gift card when I was 18, and I loved that album. It's not in my top 5, but it's not too far out. And I'm not a huge Drake. Drake has kind of slappies. I'm not one of them, but Take Care was fantastic, and he has a lot of fantastic albums. But I immediately took that iTunes gift card, and I didn't own that iTunes gift card for 10 minutes before Take Care was downloaded on my phone. And to this day, I have 2 albums downloaded on iTunes. I'm a Spotify guy. And one of them is that U2 album that everybody has, and then the other one is Take Care. So the Buried Alive interlude is like the first song that always plays when I get in the car. So shout out to Take Care for that one. All right, number 3. I went grunge. I went hip-hop-ish, whatever you would consider Frank Ocean. Coming in number 3, Led 4. That is Led Zeppelin's first 4 albums are all fantastic. I like Led 4 the most. Led 3 doesn't get enough credit. It's kind of folky. I kind of like the folkiness of it. But Led Zeppelin's I think they're the greatest band ever. I think they're better than the Beatles. Led 4 is my favorite of their work. Lindsay, coming in at number 3 for you.
Well, I have a feeling no one's really going to know this one, but it's the Nostalgia album by Rod Wave. That's one of the ones where you can just put shuffle, and I know every song. I like every song on that album.
See, this is where your youth is showing.
But like, I don't know, yeah. But that's the only one that I think no one would know who that is, really.
Here's the funny thing about music is that every once in a while you'll hear of a new artist. I don't know who Rod Wave is. I don't know this. Maybe I should. I'm not an old fogey. I'm only 27, but I should listen to Rod Wave. But like you'll go to like a Spotify artist's play like their page, and they'll have like 4 songs that have 1 billion listens or like 400 million listens. You're like, this person's popular. How have I never heard of this person before? I guarantee Rod Wave is one of those people. Casey, coming in number 3.
I'm not going to say this correctly. License to 3, Beastie Boys. It has classics like Paul Revere, Brass Monkey, No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
It's not Licensed to 3.
What is it?
Licensed to Ill.
Oh, yeah.
Beastie Boys is great. Beastie
It
Boys
is
is fantastic. I like Beastie Boys. You know, Beastie Boys have a very passionate fan base to where like people that are huge Beastie Boy fans love telling you that they're Beastie Boy fans. And they have good music, so I understand why. Kind of rap music, kind of mixed with metal. Like it's cool. I like Beastie Boys. My second favorite album of all time. So I've done the Pearl Jam thing, done Led Zeppelin. I think they're the greatest band of all time. Frank Ocean has 2 fantastic albums. Coming in number 2 is my favorite country guy. Kind of got me into country music was Zach Bryan, and that's American Heartbreak. I think Deanne is better. So this is where it gets a little weird. I think Deanne is better, which was his first album. But American Heartbreak has so many songs, and that's what kind of made him explode. So I'll put American Heartbreak on there at number 2. Lindsay.
So my next 2 are Drake, my 1 and 2, because I don't really listen to albums like that, but these 2 albums I can just listen to every single song, and I actually enjoy every single song. And so the number 2 is Her Loss with Drake and 21.
Okay.
I like that one.
All right.
I'm double checking what the album is, but I think it's Full Moon Fever from Tom Petty.
All right.
It's a Tom Petty.
I like whenever we go over to Casey because I have a little adage.
Yep.
Tom Petty, I'm not a huge Tom Petty fan. I think Tom Petty's a B+ artist in all seriousness. I think he's
sad.
fine. He's great, but he's B+. Our boss, Trace Fowler, thinks that like the phrase good music was made for Tom Petty. Whenever we like are out and about and we need to play a playlist, say like we're doing a board event or something like that, and he's just play Tom Petty. And I'm like, what's with your fascination with Tom Petty? Like there's so many different routes you can go to, but he just associates Tom Petty with great music. And I think it's good music, but not great music.
There's only 2 songs on there for me that I just absolutely love. Free Fallin', everyone loves Free Fallin', but Running Down a Dream, it just speaks to a lot of people. And I think that's why I love that album so much.
Tom Petty's also interesting because his probably his most famous song is Mary Jane's Last Dance, and that came out in the 90s. Like you think Tom Petty, you think late 70s, 80s, but yeah, Mary Jane's Last Dance came out in the 90s. Same way with AC/DC. AC/DC's arguably their most famous song, which is Thunderstruck, came out in the 90s when they are very much a late 70s, early 80s band. But I digress. Coming in at number 1, it's the greatest rap album of all time from the greatest rapper of all time. It's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Kanye West, I said that Drake has slappies. Kanye West very much has slappies. I am a Kanye West slappy. I listen to everything he has. It's Stockholm Syndrome at this point. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is absolutely amazing. There is not a bad song on that album, and not even like a mediocre song on that album. Every song on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is incredible. Runaway is 9 minutes long, and the final 3 minutes of Runaway is Kanye West just like moaning into auto-tune, and for some reason you listen to it. So either here nor there. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy coming in at number 1. Lindsay Rue.
So my number 1 is For All the Dogs, Scary Hours Edition, Drake's album. I think
Okay.
it's like his newest album. I love that album. But I do like old songs. Like I have a whole playlist that's like a dad playlist that has like all the old songs. There's
right.
a lot of Tom Petty on it.
A lot of Tom Petty on there.
Tom Petty.
Casey, coming in at number 1 before we get the update from the road.
It's probably going to be some Johnny Cash album, to be honest with you. But I just don't know what it is, to be honest with you.
Johnny Cash has
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash has a song called Rock Island Line. That is, I like to tell people it's the first rap song ever. It's not a necessarily great song, but he literally like raps in it. He just like he goes quicker and goes quicker and goes quicker and just starts mumbling the words, and it sounds like rap. But it's old Johnny Cash. All right, so we promised you guys an update from the road once again. My boss, Trace Fowler, his co-host on Chatterbox Reds, which is Nick Kirby, our co-worker Elliot Rearing. They are on a trip. They are going to Missouri. They are going to a Kansas State game. They're going to Denver. They're going to national parks. They're going to Vegas. They're going to spring training. And the best part about the trip is I was not invited. And even if I was invited, I would not have gone. But let's hear from the Van Cave. Ellie Rue looks like he's driving. Guys, how's it going? How's the drive going?
What's up? Drive's going well. We are somewhere in the middle of Missouri. The driver, Mr. Rearing, cannot hear you. We got to merge. We're merging.
We're merging.
Okay, we're merging. Here's the Zebra. Let's give a quick update from the Zebra. How's morale here on the beginning of day 2?
Morale's pretty good. I'm just getting the hang of driving this big bus. Now, I got a couple issues with it. Number one, no rear view mirror access. I have a rear view mirror, but it's just I see darkness. I can't see anything out of it. So if I'm trying to see anybody behind me, can't do it, can't see it. The left and right mirrors, they're okay. Again, not great. Not a lot of visibility on those either. So we're driving with not a whole lot of mirrors. But other than that, I love it. I love where I'm at.
Where did you guys stop tonight? Because you guys made it to St. Louis by like 5A. So I figured you'd be in Kansas City by now if you kept going.
Well, to make it confusing, I think it was another Saint. I think it was St. Peter's or something outside of St. Louis. Just a very confusing city, but a lovely hotel. I had a lovely breakfast that I enjoyed. No one else decided to partake breakfast, but I had a nice blueberry waffle.
Nice. Where did you, what time did you guys get to the hotel?
Like 2:30 Central, so I guess about 3:30 Eastern, I believe.
And what time did you guys hit the road?
10 o'clock Central, so 11 o'clock Eastern. Yeah.
So you guys got about 8 hours. So that's well worth it. That's what I would describe as well worth it. I've checked into a hotel before at 4A and left at 7A, which probably in hindsight wasn't worth it. All right, has there been any mishaps? Has there been any shenanigans, as we could say, from this road trip thus far?
Any mishaps or shenanigans?
Yeah, he mentioned that continental breakfast. We stayed at the Bates Motel, east of St. Louis. Crime is abundant here, and we got Nick Kirby going down at 7 a.m. asking for a muffin. One of the more he's like, everybody, you got to go down and get this continental breakfast. Bates Motel. I thought it was one of the more preposterous things. I don't even know if they got fresh fruit. I imagine they didn't. They have fresh fruit, Nick.
I don't know, but you guys are going to run out of money by the end of this trip. Me, who's efficient, eating the free breakfast, I'll be alive here going into day 12 and 13.
I saw you got some beef jerky. How were the smells? Did it smell preposterous in the van, or was that okay?
I mean, I think it was fine. I mean, it was just a beef stick. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. Jalapeno cheddar, my preferred choice of beef stick. I don't think it was too bad. Elliot was actually recording a podcast with me. That's kind of why I did it, kind of as a little bit of a bit. But we'll ask Elliot, how bad was the beef stick?
The more you say beef stick, the more my point gets proven right to the day. I mean, this is why beef jerky's not good. We got people calling it beef sticks, waving it around my head while I'm trying to conduct business. This is a business work trip on a very serious sports talk show company. And we got Nick Kirby waving around his beef right in my face. That's the best I can do.
So on the first night, we've already had an HR incident to where Kirby is waving around his beef stick in front of Elliot's face. So that's tough. So I like how we're playing telephone too, where I'm talking to Kirby and then he's got to relay what I'm saying to everybody else. Listen,
it was the most efficient way we could figure it out.
Fair enough. Have you has the degrading from our boss to our good friend Elliot continued from yesterday's show into this road trip? Did we figure out the nickname that Trace was going to call Elliot on this road trip?
No nickname, but the intensity has definitely picked up. I think it swelled a little bit last night, and it's calmed down a little sense. But I don't know. Elliot, how do you feel about the relationship with your employer at this point?
It feels great. We're off to a great start. I listen. I was concerned that the vibes weren't going to be good. I thought he was going to start yelling at everybody. Luckily for Nick, Nick's never going to get yelled at on this trip. I'm going to be the whipping boy. We got Jeremiah and Taylor back there. Again, great human beings, but they're not going to get yelled at. It's just going to be Elliot. So any frustration that's going to be vented, it's going to be placed on me. But as of right now, we're 1 day in, a little bit over a day now, and no frustration has been thrust upon me. So I'm good. I feel great with my relationship with the boss as of this very second.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the trip once again. Thank you for not inviting me. I wouldn't have gone even if you guys did. I didn't want to go on that. It doesn't sound like fun to go to all these states together in a big old boys trip. But that's neither here nor there. Are you guys excited to go to Allen Fieldhouse? Kirby, ever been there before? You're a big basketball guy.
Never been. My first time at Fog Allen. Never been. I don't think I've ever really been. I've been to Rupp Arena. I think that's the only big time blue blood type arena I've been to. But Elliot, have you been to Fog Allen before?
Never been to Fog Allen. The only other basketball arena I've been to outside of Fifth Third and Cintas, I'm pretty sure is the one at SMU. I forget what SMU's is called, but that was a pretty cool arena, pretty cool venue. But Trace is hyping up this Fog Allen Fieldhouse, so I'm excited. I'm very, very, very excited.
Where are you guys staying tonight? Are you guys staying in Kansas City? Are you guys getting on the road after the game?
I believe that's a game time. I believe that's a game time decision, as was last night. Depends on how we get on the road.
You mentioned it's a game time decision. This trip is brought to you by Game Time, sponsors of the trip. So shout out to Game Time. We did our ad read, so it's funny we snuck that in there. All right, guys. You said you were supposed to leave by 7. You left about 9:30. What the heck happened there?
Whoa. We ended up going about 3 hours further than we anticipated last night. It was just a change of plans. I thought it was a more efficient way to do it. Drive further, have a shorter day today because we got a long day today. We're getting to Fog Allen. We're visiting the burial of the godfather of basketball. We're going to a game, and then I believe we're going to try to do a live show and then drive a couple hours. So it was nice to get a little bit more rest last night. I think it was a solid decision.
What time are you guys doing the live show at? Approximately. I know. What time are you shooting for?
Were we shooting for midnight tonight for the live show, or maybe 11? We're Eastern.
Time codes. I don't got any time codes in my brain. I'm trying to go on what I got right now. It's 10:37. Is that game 8 o'clock our time, Trace? 8 o'clock. Well,
8 o'clock our time, 9 o'clock Eastern.
9 o'clock Eastern. So midnight shows realistic, says Trace.
The good thing though is if you subscribe to Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, you hit the bell in the top right corner, turn on notifications. You'll be notified anytime we go live.
All right, so you guys are shooting right around midnight Eastern time. I'll brew a pot of coffee about 10 so I can stay up and watch that and hear the tales from the road. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on. Yeah, Kirby, you got
one quick thing. I tuned in earlier.
Oh no,
Casey was reading the Cubs score. Can you tell me what the Cubs score was again?
Yeah, Kirby, it was 2-1. They lost.
2-1. Okay. For some reason, I heard 1-2 earlier, and it just kind of threw me off. So, all right, good.
You got it right. It wasn't you just bringing up the fact that the Cubs lost a game, was it?
This was a double whammy, man. This was a Cubs lost and a shot at Casey. I mean, really, this was a 2-for-1.
Ah, man, Casey, you hear that?
I'm getting strays from Kirby. I mean, that's not what I expected on this.
They asked
us. I've been influenced.
They ask us to man the fort down while they go have whimsical fun and shenanigans and all the good things that guys do on road trips. And you and I are catching strays from home. Congratulations to the Reds on winning a spring training game while the Cubs lost a spring training game. As we all know, those records.
15-8.
As we all know, those games do count at the end of the year. When they total up the wins and losses in October, you will certainly get one up on the Cubs for that one. So congratulations to the Cincinnati Reds for winning a game in meaningless spring training. Guys, enjoy your trip. We're looking forward to the live show tonight. Enjoy Allen Fieldhouse. Trace took us there last year. It's incredible. If you're a college basketball fan, which both you guys are, it should be great. Should be great.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Yep. See you guys. Once again, that is the road trip. It doesn't have an official name. It's sponsored by Game Time. Sponsored by Game Time. They're going to go live tonight after the game from Allen Fieldhouse. They're going to go then drive to Denver. They're going to drive to Denver and see an NBA game. I believe they're still seeing an NHL game. I don't know that for sure. Haven't seen the itinerary because why would I? I wasn't on the trip. Wasn't invited. Once again, if I was invited, I wouldn't go. But it looks like spirits are high. We'll see how it goes. What's the over/under on when it starts derailing this trip, Casey? It's a 2-week trip. What day are you giving that this trip starts to derail?
To derail, I'm gonna give it another day or two before it starts really becoming unhinged. I mean, I was very surprised that Elliot had a glowing review about his current status within this trip with his boss. I'm very surprised. Very surprised.
Yeah, listen, it's going to be a long time. I think things are probably going to cool over at some point. But Elliot was catching strays yesterday. He was catching a lot of strays, but it's all good. It's all good. It sounds like they're going to have a lot of fun. As we mentioned, they're going to go to the Kansas versus Kansas State game tonight. They'll have a review. I guess they're just going to talk about their road trip. They're going to go live from the road, from the Van Cave. That trip is sponsored by Game Time, our new sponsor. But yeah, should be a lot of fun. They'll be checking in. So you hit that bell notification. So if you're looking at the screen, it should be like right over here. Hit that bell if you're subscribed. Let us know when we go live. But Casey, any other things we got to get to today?
For programming?
Yeah, programming. Do we have any other programming notes?
I don't think we have any programming notes here. I think our duty is done for the day. We did our first live show together without the group.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What were your thoughts,
right,
chat?
So
What do you think
I was
how we
trying to
did?
bury this. Admittedly, I'm trying to bury this. If you guys know me, the Cubs are my favorite team, but the Bengals are my second favorite team. That being said, the team that I hate the most in the world are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we've already talked about the NFL quite a bit today. We'll round out this show talking more about the NFL. We'll talk a lot about college basketball tomorrow. Once again, Paul Fritcher is going to be on the show tomorrow. We'll have a full show planned, so be sure to tune in tomorrow. But Russell Wilson was officially a free agent. Officially got released by the Denver Broncos. We all knew this was going to happen. $85 million cap hit, dead cap hit, is a bit startling, especially if you're a Broncos fan. But it is what it is. They didn't think they had a guy. The craziest thing about the Russell Wilson discourse at this point right now is that people are misremembering how he played this year. He was pretty good. Like I'm serious. He was pretty good. I'm looking at his stats: 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,000 yards, completed about 65% of the passes. That's not mediocre. That's not bad. That's not terrible, which everyone is labeling Russell Wilson. That's good. That's good. And now he's going to be looking for a new team. And there's a team that I already alluded to that would kill me inside. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I know we don't talk about them a whole lot because the Ravens had the best record in the AFC this year. They won the AFC North. Obviously, the Bengals won the last 2 years. The Browns are what they are. But the Pittsburgh Steelers made the postseason 10-7. And a very hard conference in what perhaps could be the toughest division in the history of football, which was the AFC North this year, where every team finished over 500. They went 10-7 with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph as their starting quarterbacks. Those two quarterbacks, you ready for this? These were their stats. Oh, Mitch Trubisky started 2 games too. So from their starting quarterbacks, they completed 73% of their passes, or 63% of their passes. They had 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. 10-7 with Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, and Mason Rudolph. And there's still talk coming out of the Pittsburgh Steelers saying that they are not entertaining. They've got their quarterbacks. They're cool with Kenny. Pickett. Pittsburgh guy, went to Pittsburgh U. Now he plays for the Steelers. If they get a guy like Russell Wilson, that's a major improvement at the quarterback position. It's perhaps something we're not talking about enough. Ryan Tannehill was rumored to go there. Justin Fields going to the Pittsburgh Steelers scares me as well. But it just feels like this AFC North is loading up more than ever. And the Pittsburgh Steelers give me nightmares already. They beat us twice this year. I had all my buddies over December 23rd. Jake Browning coming off 3 straight wins. Beat the Jags. Had a great win against the Colts and the Vikings. And the Steelers take the Bengals to the woodshed. And he's not being linked to them whatsoever. But I want to allude to a few things. I think we believe that the Steelers have decent weapons. Got a nice tight end. They got a couple wide receivers. They've got a great D. They won 10 games with Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, and Mitch Trubisky. And now we're going to give him a quarterback who had 26 touchdowns. Doesn't turn the ball over. Very efficient. Russell Wilson isn't what he used to be, but he's still pretty efficient. And the similarities now are pretty similar to what Russ Wilson had in Seattle. Defensive head coach, Super Bowl winning head coach, a good run game, just enough weapons. They won't ask him to do too much. He doesn't have to save the franchise like he had to in Denver. Now that might go against the ego that is Russell Wilson, which I think not a lot of people like. But if there's anybody that can get a lot out of Russell Wilson and temper down his ego, I got my money on Mike Tomlin. Once again, this is pure speculation, but it fits. It's a puzzle piece that fits right in. And if you don't think that the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell Wilson is a team to be feared in the AFC, do I think they can win the Super Bowl? No. But tell me that the 10-7 Steelers don't improve. They won 10 games last year. And if they get a quarterback like Russell, if they get a quarterback like Justin Fields, they get a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. I don't think Kirk Cousins would go there. This team gets better. Are we looking at a 12-win team? Are we looking at a team that doesn't get blown out in the postseason but wins a postseason game? On top of the Browns, won 11 games. Joe Flacco quarterbacking at the end of the year. They'll get Deshaun Watson back. I don't think we can completely count out that Deshaun Watson's going to be terrible. I think we can count, there's going to be some positives there. Am I off my rocker? Maybe. I'm not even looking at the check because I know you guys are going to say stupid stuff. But Russell Wilson to the Steelers, does that not intimidate you at all, Casey, or is that a nothing burger?
No, I think that's a very bad scenario for the Bengals. I really do. I was curious because I wanted to see how they lost last year, and this doesn't really help prove anything. They lost games where they were blown out, 30-7, 30-6, 30-13, 24-10. But they have a couple of these mixed in here, 13-10, 12-18. There's some games where they barely lost, where you could maybe point and say Russell Wilson is the difference between a win and a loss there. And if you give him that credit, they lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Cardinals. I think that you could theoretically, if you have a stable enough quarterback that can throw a deep ball to guys like George Pickens, I think that's a good combination there. I think that's a good scheme fit for them. I think that they've got a good run game. Great defense, just like you alluded to. It's a scary proposition.
The reason that it makes sense is because you're not going to be asking Russell Wilson to be the savior as he was in Denver. When he came to Denver, this is what we talked about Denver. They're a quarterback away. We thought that they were closer to the Rams. Turns out it wasn't like that. They weren't that close. Russell didn't play to God levels. But you're not going to ask him to do that in Pittsburgh. You're going to peel it back. Hey, we just need you to hit a couple more passes. Don't turn the ball over. Don't be Kenny Pickett. Be a shell of Russell Wilson, but that's still a pretty good shell. And the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming out and saying Kenny Pickett's our guy is one of two things. It's either they're lying, just straight up, lying about it, because I don't know how you can watch Kenny Pickett play, who you benched for Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky, and say, this is our guy. Or they truly believe that Kenny Pickett is their guy. And in that case, I'm no longer scared of the Pittsburgh Steelers because they are so far from reality that it doesn't matter. But, as I said, Mike Tomlin can rein in Russell Wilson's ego. Russell Wilson can elevate this Pittsburgh Steelers team to now we're talking about another team in the division that is not just viable, but pretty stinking good. The Ravens are a team that can win a Super Bowl. The Browns, if Deshaun Watson plays to the level that he used to play, are a team that can win the Super Bowl. Now, I don't think Russell Wilson of the Pittsburgh Steelers makes them a team that can win the Super Bowl, but it makes them more than viable to win a playoff game, win 12 games, can win this division. We're looking at, without a doubt, the hardest division in sports then. And we'll see what happens to the the AFC West. I think with Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh being there, that's pretty interesting. Obviously, the Broncos and the Raiders are going to take a hit for the next few years, but those aren't bad teams. Those aren't terrible teams. But the AFC North, it appears if the Steelers can figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, it appears they'll be the toughest division in football again. Luckily, the Bengals have a fourth-place schedule. All right. Any cherry on tops?
I do not have a cherry on top.
Lindsay, any passing notes as we pulled on you a lot today. You brought us Love is Blind. You brought that information to us. She told me last week, hey, watch Love is Blind. I watch it. It's great stuff. Mm-hmm. We heard from your favorite albums of all time. Jack Johnson fan. You like, you're going to make me listen to Rod Wave, I guess, is what I got to do.
I swear it's good. People, it's like, I think it's more like sad music, but it doesn't get you in your feelings. It's like good sad music. It's like just the lyrics are sad, but I really like them and they don't make me sad. It's just, you like singer.
When you listen to music, do you like beats? Do you like lyrics? Do you like the combination of the both?
I like the combination. I tend to listen more to the lyrics, though. I've realized now, as I've gotten older, I listen to the lyrics.
What I've always said about that is a song has to be catchy to grab you, right? It has to have something that pulls you in and listen to it. And then you normally grow a deeper appreciation for a song after you read what they're trying to say. My bosses make fun of me because when I first started working for them back in 2019, I hated country music. Now I almost exclusively listen to country music, and they make fun of me because they'll hear me listening to like Tyler Childers, Zach Bryan, Sam Barber, Dylan Goss, and they're like, dude, this is crazier than the country music we listen to. And I was like, what do you think I didn't like about the country music? I didn't like the bro country music, the Florida Georgia lines, the hammer and a nail, that kind of stuff, because it wasn't saying anything. I like music that says something. Or if it doesn't say something, at least be catchy enough to be Carnival from Kanye West. Like, at least do that. But I just like my music to say something. Maybe that's too much to ask for music. Maybe that's why I like it too much.
Do you think Kanye's music says something to you every time?
Sometimes.
You think Carnival is speaking to you?
Well, no, I say that Carnival is catchy. So I said, like, if it doesn't speak to you, I need it to at least, like, be catchy enough to keep me going. And country music doesn't get like the bro country music, the stuff that's played on the radio doesn't do that for me. Rap music can do that for me if it's not saying anything. But yes, old Kanye through the wire.
Like what? What song?
Runaway. Ooh, Ultralight Beam. If you've never listened to Ultralight Beam.
I'm going to listen to Kanye to know what you're talking about. But
Ultralight Beam from The Life of Pablo is actually probably my favorite Kanye song. It's fantastic. Runaway. Devil in a New Dress. I mean, you're spitballing here. Jesus Walks is a great song that has meaning to it. I'm not going to do the Kanye thing today. I'm not going to do it. Maybe you'll see it some other points, but I'm not going to do the Kanye thing. But with no cherry on top, I think we're going to call it here a day. We say 12-ish, right? 10A to 12P-ish. And we're going to go off about 5 minutes early. I've got a meeting that I got to do in about 2 hours, so I got to get ready for that. And we'll have a show for you tomorrow. I mentioned Paul Fritchner. We might have another guest on tomorrow. I'm waiting to hear from the Brenneman, see if Marty and Tom will come on. But, guys, as we mentioned, midnight tonight is about the time that they're going to go live, giving you a report of Allen Fieldhouse, all the things from the road trip. But for Casey, Lindsay, thank you guys for filling in today. I got to get Spur Bear. I got to get Spur Bear on this show for the next 2 days. Guys, thank you for tuning in for today. You got me for the next 2 weeks, whether you like it or not. That's just the case. We love having you guys in the chat. I love talking with you. Had a lot of fun. Casey?
Game time. Really quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just remember to download Game Time, download the app, and create an account. And type in the code OTB, right? OTB, and get $20 off. Don't forget to do that. So,
Mr. Mo doesn't like Ultralight Beam? That song is amazing. I wasn't going to do the Kanye thing. Listen to it. Read the lyrics. It's fantastic. If you don't like Ultralight Beam, I'm sorry, brother. That song's great. We don't want no devils in the house. We want the Lord. See you guys tomorrow. Off the bench. Be back tomorrow. Better than ever. 10A. Watch their live show. Click the bell so you know when they go live. They'll be around midnight. See you tomorrow, guys.